Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. I'm welcoming Amanda this morning, who this is our first YouTube chat, so I'm excited. And today we're kicking it off, and we're just going to start to chat a little bit about finances and money and how it can sometimes manifest itself into stress and anxiety. And it's good timing because today is October 10th, and it is World Mental Health Day. And so it's a good time to just kind of check in with your mental health and see if potentially your finances could be causing some of that stress and anxiety. Amanda, do you want to introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. My name is Amanda Costura. I am a licensed clinical social worker in Ohio, and I own a practice called Carve Your Own Path, and we offer holistic mental health and wellness services.
Great. Well, thanks so much for joining me. I'm excited. I think oftentimes, I think finances just get overlooked sometimes when we're thinking about mental health and stress. And it's one of those things that I say this all the time. The only two things that we're ever taught about money is we don't talk about it, and we don't talk about it. Like that's literally all we're taught.
Mhm.
And so oftentimes people portray things to the outside world that are not really accurate because they're afraid to really be honest about it because it's just such a taboo thing to talk about, which
Mhm.
is a shame because I actually just read a statistic this morning that said 46% of people with debt also have a mental health diagnosis. Now, that may not be as directly related, but it certainly has a big impact. So,
Mhm.
and then of course, what the article went on to say was that then because those folks have a mental health diagnosis and they're stressed and anxious, then that can lead to more financial um, concerns and struggles in their life, which of course then can lead to more anxiety and depression. So it's so important to get a good handle on it. So just wondering if you have any thoughts around, sort of finances and how that can manifest into stress and anxiety.
Oh, yes, I do. Both personally and professionally. The interesting thing that came to mind for me that I was hearing as you were saying what we're taught or not taught or whatever, um, it's not even a taught, it's a we are being conditioned. The people forget we have advanced so far in society.
Mm-hmm.
People forget how basic we are.
Yeah.
So, what we've been taught about money typically is to fear it.
Yeah.
So, it's this visceral stress response reaction. It's automatic, it's unconscious, we don't have control over it. So, even I can tell you right now, Rachel, even just having this conversation with you, even though I knew it was happening, I agreed to have it, I feel tightness in my chest.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a ingrained trauma response. People think trauma is just like a one situation thing, right? But that is an ingrained response that my body has. Now, if I sit here and I think about my child and the cool developmental things that he was doing, and I look at a picture, that'll release, right? So your body is literally trained and primed to respond certain ways to certain things. So even just the initial response of your body, so this tightness, that's going to mean I'm not thinking as clearly. My logical brain isn't online. I'm a little more in my emotional brain. And so I might not even be able to communicate as clearly. So it gets as basic as that with the money. So you add on, I have this issue going on in my body, either my heart's racing, I'm getting hot. The thoughts that go along with that, what I've
Yeah.
heard, like you said, what we were told in childhood, what I saw my parents argue about
Mm-hmm.
financially, how I don't know how to negotiate for pay, right? Like even though we don't talk about it, I continue to find myself in these situations and the fear just gets reaffirmed, right? Your
Mm-hmm.
body just
Mm-hmm.
says, yep, there's a tiger standing in front of you. Yep, there's a tiger
Mm-hmm.
standing in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's money, right? So I know that's a long-winded response, but that's as a clinician, that's where my brain goes, is that, and then that has long-term physical,
Yeah.
emotional, social, financial repercussions.
Mm-hmm. Well, thanks for being so open about that. I really appreciate it. I'm just wondering, I'm going to take a little probably sidestep here and just, do you have some idea of something that might help you not feel that like sort of strain in your chest when you're thinking about money or talking about money? Like, is there something that you could know or do or someone could tell you
Mhm.
that might help that response?
We have to uncondition it and
Mm-hmm.
recondition it.
Mm-hmm.
So, one of my favorite quotes I heard is that you can't walk into a forest 5 miles and get out in one. So we can't expect that that's just going to automatically, like with an affirmation or a positive thought or a
Mm-hmm.
replacement thought, will just go away. That is stored in our bodies. And so you can't think your way out of that. You
Yeah.
can use your thoughts to assist you in that. But it has to be more somatic, right? So for
Mm-hmm.
me, that's slowing down and taking a couple deep breaths, releasing my shoulders, right? Like literally just getting more grounded, out of my head into my body the best you
Mm-hmm.
can.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then once you feel a little more regulated, a little less tense, then that might be reaching out to a friend or your spouse that you can actually
Yeah.
talk to this thing about. It might be getting outside, like whatever. This is why therapy is so great because we can give you these ideas. Um, talking to your therapist about it that week, journaling,
Mm-hmm.
lots
Mm-hmm.
of resources, right? It just
Yeah.
has to, for me, I'm intuitive with resources. So I don't say any one thing for any one
Right.
person at any one time, just what
Right.
feels right in that moment.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
But because we're talking about this topic today, once you're regulated, I might say, hey, grab a notebook or grab a voice recorder. People have different ways of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
but just get all the thoughts out on paper. It doesn't have to make sense. It doesn't have to be
Right.
legible. It could be
Right.
bullet points. It could be pictures. Just get everything out of you that you feel related to that stress you felt, right? Things you've heard quote from family members or
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and just release.
Yeah.
And then you're at like a starting point again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. For you, do you think hearing like other people's money stories might help release some of that anxiety? Like having your friends say, you know what, can we like not go to this expensive restaurant because I'm going to be honest, I just can't swing it this month. And I know that that's unfortunately often not being said out loud, but do you think like hearing things like that more regularly might help you feel a little bit less stress about money?
That's validation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when people come to therapy, when people go on TikTok and see a creator talking about an issue that they
Mm-hmm.
struggle with, that's core validation, and it gets to our basic need of connection and
Mm-hmm.
safety building. So absolutely, to hear
Mm-hmm.
those things is because our world becomes what we surround ourselves with, or our thoughts, or the information. So if you're constantly being input with all of the negative things, it's going to be
Mm-hmm.
challenging to
Mm-hmm.
get out of that
Yeah.
mindset, right? So any additional information you can get is definitely supportive. It's not going to be the only thing that
Right.
helps, right? We
Right.
got to
Of
address it
course.
from the
Yes.
holistic. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's one thing. But I think this is what causes people to not start in a lot of different journeys is it is a long process. It's not going to happen overnight. I mean, I have my own money story, right? And my own issues with money, as we all do. And it didn't, my journey is, I mean, it's still not over, but I have gotten much better with it over years, years and years. But, for me, it, I think a lot of time because like I mentioned earlier, like people are projecting out to the world what they think other people want to see. And people are afraid to talk about their money because that's like you said, we're conditioned to not talk about it and be kind of embarrassed by it, unfortunately. And so a lot of times people do think they're alone, right? They feel like I'm the only person going through this. Like, gosh, all my friends are just shelling out all this money for all these things. And I feel like I can't do it. But if you're also projecting that, if you are also shelling out this money, but then feeling really stressed about it later, there's a good chance that one of your friends might be doing exactly the same thing because you're also portraying that you're like that. And so, and I really do encourage my clients to talk about it and to say, even if it's something so simple, like, I went to the store the other day and I saw a sweater and it was $70 and I really liked it, but that was too much for me. Just
Mhm.
start small. You don't have to show your friends your whole bank account, but like
Yeah.
start small by talking about money. Um, because somebody else in that room is going to get something out of what you're saying, right? They're gonna be like, oh my God, thank God she said that because I just feel like I'm the only one that's struggling here. Um, and so that's, I think it's just this cycle. We're afraid to talk about it. So we're putting out there what we want people to see, but then other people are struggling maybe exactly the same way, or at least a very similar way, but they're doing exactly what you're doing is you're projecting what you want other people to see. And then you all are living sort of this lie, for lack of better words, where like you all think each other is a certain way about money, but because you don't talk about it, you don't really know. So like
Rachel, I
don't
think that's
don't
how
talk.
it is with like all of life too, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
nobody, I don't know what I'm doing. I
Right.
have degrees, I have licensures, I have my own business. By all accounts, I am successful, and life is challenging and none of us
Mm-hmm.
know how to navigate it. We're all
Yeah.
figuring it out as we go. But the thing that came from me when you were talking about that is that research shows that isolation is one of the biggest predictors of health outcomes, even
Mm-hmm.
compared to
Yeah.
smoking or high cholesterol, things like that. So when it's this small piece of you, which isn't that small, right? But even if it's just that chunk of you, not like I'm a hermit living in the woods and I don't have any
Right.
connections, or maybe I have social anxiety and I don't talk to people, that in its own self has its issues. But even just like I said, the stress on our bodies and that isolation of that not being able to communicate about that is
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
detrimental to our health.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Honestly, it's not to anyone, the betterment of anyone. It is
Right.
detrimental to all of us. And if we
Right.
truly care about, even if we can't find it in ourselves to care about ourselves enough, if you care about your neighbor, if you care about your friend, if you
Mm-hmm.
care about your
Mm-hmm.
family, you'll talk about
Mm-hmm.
these things because
Yeah.
it's for our health.
Yeah. 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 I keep using friend, but also you just reminded me too, like your partner. Like if you have a partner and you're not sure what their financial situation is and they're not sure what yours is and you're not having those conversations, like, it's very common that people hear all the time, like money is the number one reason for arguments and divorces and breakups. But I would argue that it's actually the lack of communication around money,
Hmm.
not the actual money itself. And so
Hmm.
I hope that that is freeing for somebody hearing that, because you can't always make more money, right? And you can't just snap your fingers and your
Yep.
debt completely go away. Um, but you can talk about it. And I know that I'm not saying that that's going to be easy to do, but you can. Like, that is something you can control. You can't right this instant control what your paycheck looks like or how much
Hmm.
bills that you really have right now. But talking about it can help you come up with those solutions. And so, I hope that that's what I can help do with my clients, is just help them have a safe space to talk about it. But gosh, talk about it with your partner. And if you don't know how and you're not sure how to get started, please reach out. Like, I love to work with couples and just sort of help them with that
Hmm.
communication. Because that also can ease your mental health, right? It
Hmm.
can ease your stress. And you just sometimes just saying it out loud, even if nobody in the room agrees with you or understands what you're saying, just saying it out loud sometimes can be like, oh, and there's a very good chance that people will relate to your story, no matter what it is.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. We could probably have a conversation for 3 hours, but I try to keep these short. um, I just kind of think, sort of just an overview is that you're not alone. Other people are very likely experiencing some stress and anxiety over their money, even if it's different than yours. They're still probably experiencing some. I think most people experience some stress and anxiety over money. Um, and start small by talking about it, saying it
Hmm.
out loud. That's so freeing. And like you said, that takes away the isolation, because you do feel very isolated, even if you're surrounded by wonderful people. If you internally you can't say, or you're unable to say the things that you're feeling, you feel alone. And
Hmm.
no one wants to be. Humans are not meant to be alone.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, so you got to start somewhere. Just start small, but start somewhere. And so, a really great thing would be to like make a goal today and say, okay, I am going to, and again, it could be something so simple like, I bought a pair of shoes and they were $100 and I couldn't believe it. That was so expensive. And I was just really, I was stressed that I had to spend that much. I mean, something so simple, and just leave it
Hmm.
at that and see how people respond to it. And there's a good chance that somebody else is going to be like, oh my God, I totally understand. And then that will open up more of that conversation. And you can get there eventually, but also don't expect, like you said, it to happen overnight. It's not going to be a quick, I mean, we all grew up with a certain money story for probably 20 years of our lives, right? As we were growing up, high school, college, elementary, all that. And so that's not going to happen overnight to
Hmm.
yours.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, as again, we could talk about this forever, but we got to cut it off somewhere. So Amanda, do you want to just give us like a quick, like, where can we find you? Are you on social media? How can we, like, take advantage of some of your services?
Yeah, thank you. So we also have a podcast called Grow Your Path to Wellness. You can find us on YouTube or any podcast streaming platform. We talk all things holistic wellness, and Rachel was actually on our
Mhm.
podcast a couple weeks ago, so you can check out that episode. And then my business is Carve Your Own Path. You can find us at carvemypath.org. We are Carve My Path on Instagram. Yeah, I think that's it.
Okay, great. Well, thanks so much for having me. Oh boy, thanks so much for being here.
Both though, yes.
Yeah, both. And for those who don't know, I'm Rachel Dorsey. My business is Effortless Budgeting. You can find me on effortlessbudgeting.com, as well as Facebook and Instagram under Effortless Budgeting. I do post sometimes on my LinkedIn account, which is just my personal name. And then obviously my YouTube account, which is Effortless Budgeting as well. So hopefully folks get something out of this and just maybe feel a little bit of empowerment to feel like, hey, I can talk about these things, because you're very likely not alone. There's very likely people in your close circle that can relate to you. So thanks for coming on, Amanda. And I look forward to probably having you on again.
You are so welcome. I was going to say this is the point on our podcast where we start a series because it's so, like we're so talked
Yeah.
into it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And there's so much more about mental health. And yeah, we could go on.
Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Yeah. Thanks. Take care.